Hello and welcome to this review of the Haibike SDURO HardFour 4.0, which is a kid's e-bike. There aren't really that many kids e-bikes out there, to be honest, and this is one of them that I got for my son because, well, there isn't really that much of a choice. I was thinking originally of getting him a mechanical fat bike, but I decided to go for this kind of bike, partly because I was curious myself what it's like to manufacture these kids e-bikes. So let's talk about what it's actually made of. So here you can see the Yamaha PW motor. As you can see, it's an adult size motor, so there is no sort of kid sized motors and kid sized batteries. These are adult size components, meaning that in theory you could later transplant them onto an adult size frame. Well, if you're that way inclined. So the motor is, I like the big chainring here. That's really cool compared to the Bosch. This is a bike that you can actually pedal if you run out of energy. On a Bosch system you can't really pedal because it's just extremely frustrating, but on a Yamaha the sprocket here is reasonably large for you to pedal. And then you can see here this is an adult size battery as well, so this is a 400 watt-hour battery. Personally I would have preferred 500 watt-hours considering it's now kind of the norm. But I guess the beggars can't be choosers, and we don't really have that much of a choice in terms of kids e-bikes. So let's talk about some of the upgrades. And we're going to start by looking at the differences between this bike and an adult bike. So one difference is this cheap plasticky bike computer. So on an adult bike you would get something more serious, and I'm going to do a review of a more serious Haibike in the future, but let's talk about this bike computer. So it's very simple. You have the assist mode, so at the moment the assist is off, but I can sort of go up and down, switching between the eco, the standard and the high assist modes. Now in terms of what you see here on the LED, there are three different settings here, so you can see the percentage of the power that's left, and that's something that's interesting because even on a Bosch system you don't get the percentage value, you just get like 1 out of 5. Then there is the range. So depending on the assist mode, they tell you how many kilometers you can go. Obviously more on the eco than on the high. And then the final setting is your current speed. So it will tell you how fast you're going. Okay, so one button that's interesting here is the light button. Now this bike does not come with an integrated light, but guess what? I actually undid the motor and installed this Lupine SL S light. So now if we press the button like so, well, you can see the reflection here, but I'm going to go around and actually show you the light in action. So here it is. It's a very nice light. It's reasonably expensive, I would say. Running this light through the frame was not easy, I have to say. And one of the reasons is that in order to install it, you have to attach it to a cable that's in here, and you have to undo the motor. And the motor is attached with a force of 22 Newton meters, and I had no tools which can handle this kind of force, so I had to improvise a kind of lever to undo the screws here. And then, but the actual attachment of the light cable was very easy, and you simply run it through the entire frame and it comes out on the other side here, and then you run it directly to the light. So that was easy, and the light is really cool. I really like the fall-off diagram on this light, so the pattern is pretty good, I would say, and it's also adaptive. So this light adapts to the amount of light outside and then kind of tunes itself to the appropriate lighting condition. Now, as you can probably guess, the handlebar on this bike was replaced almost immediately, and the reason for that is that once again this bike came with a very horizontal kind of bar, and I didn't like it, and my son complained of pain in his arms, and so I installed the one and only NC17 Trekking Handlebar. Let me show you the label here, NC17 Trekking. So this is a bar with good rise and good sweep as well. It's a bit too big for a child, to be honest, but kids grow up fast, so my son will eventually get the hang of this one, and it's super comfortable. That's the whole point. It's raised against the stem, and it's closer to the rider. So I like this one. Okay, so let's talk about what's on the front wheel here. So the suspension fork is a Suntour fork. You can see that I've removed all the labels because if it's a Suntour, you want to remove the labels immediately. So the travel distance here is 63 millimeters, which is not a lot. It's probably the minimum that you can get on a suspension fork. Now it works well enough, and in actual fact it even has, you know, this lockout thing here where you can kind of lock out the fork if you need to. But you know, for the price, you know, you can't expect a top of the range kind of RockShox or forks. So this is there isn't really that much of a choice in 24-inch forks at all. I know there's one from RST, but really, you know, this isn't the place to invest lots of money, to be honest, because it's, you know, it's a kid's bike. Okay, so apart from the fork, the hub here is an XLC hub. Once again, I think it's some OEM manufacturer. The rotors on both the front and the back wheel are 160 mil, which are fine. And then the rims are Alex rims MD21, so they're reasonably narrow actually. I don't like narrow rims. You can maybe see it here. So 21 would mean about 2 centimeters wide, and that means if you put in a fatter tire, you might have problems. It looks like we are already kind of at the limit in terms of the tire size. And the tire here is the Schwalbe tabletop tire, 2.25 inches. It's actually, you can kind of see it here upside down. It's actually the Timo Pretzel Signature Series tire, whatever that means. I mean, I don't know who Timo Pretzel is, probably some famous person from the biking world, but you know, it's cool that they put this in here. Now the tire is fine for most conditions. You can see the kind of tread that it has. I haven't upgraded it yet, partly because my upgrade plan was to get the famous Maxxis Hookworm tire, the 2.5 inch tire, but I realized that those tires are actually huge in terms of their, you know, their outward diameter. So I'm not sure they'll actually fit. There is some space here. You can see there's about 1 centimeter off to each side, so maybe it will fit. I don't know. I haven't tried it yet, and I'm not really tempted with these rims because they are tiny. These rims are very narrow. You would have to change the rims if you wanted to perform any serious upgrade. So that's the front wheel basically. There's nothing particularly magical about this. So let's talk about the brakes. Let's talk about the brakes. So here are the brakes. Now the brakes are hydraulic and they are made by Tektro. And for those of you who don't know, Tektro is the cheapest hydraulic brake maker that's out there. So they've put the absolute cheapest brakes they could on this bike. Now personally, I would have gone with something like SRAM Level or maybe the Magura MT2, but this is what we have. I have no intention of upgrading them. Certainly on a kid's bike, you're not going to be doing the kind of high speeds that require, you know, the quad caliper brakes like the Magura MT5 or something. So it's they're okay. They're fine, and you know, so that's that. Now in terms of the gears, so here is the I'm not sure how well you can see that, but here is the switch for the 9 rear gears. Let me actually show you the back of the bike here if I can. So the sprocket itself is a SRAM sprocket, and the system that's being used here is the Shimano Acera. Let me try to turn it like this. So Shimano Acera is one of the cheaper systems that's out there. Not the cheapest, but it's one of the cheaper ones. And once again, you wouldn't put something like a Shimano Saint on this bike anyway. So once again, I have no intention of doing any kind of upgrades here. So so you have 9 speeds on the rear. The switch on the handlebar is reasonably comfortable, so everything is fine in this regard. Now one interesting thing that's still not finished, as you can see here, is the rear fender. So this is a pure, I think it's aluminum, I'm not sure, the kind of metal fender that I purchased from Classic Cycle, which is a German company that sells parts for cruiser bicycles specifically. So this fender is designed for a 3-inch tire. Obviously we don't have 3-inch, but it fits nicely. It also comes with the kind of front fender, but I can't fit it here on the suspension fork because it's a suspension fork. I don't know where to fit it, so we'll see how that goes and what we improvise in this regard. But essentially I'm just in the process of, as you can see, attaching the struts here, and this fits rather nicely, so I think, well, it's a reasonably expensive Fender, and I've decided not to paint it as well, so I'm thinking that if it rusts, I'll just install another one. I bought 2 of them just in case. Okay, so pedals, I kept the pedals that came with the bike. Surprise, surprise, the bike came with these plasticky pedals. Once again, there's no reason to really upgrade them to anything sophisticated. In terms of the seat, surprisingly enough, I decided to keep the seat as well. Normally I replace the seat, but the Haibike, this is actually a Selle Italia seat, Haibike branded obviously, so there is, you know, there is a temptation to replace it, but then it looks and feels really comfortable. My son is happy with it, so that's fine. The only thing I changed is the actual the rod which holds up the seat. So here I have the Creek Thudbuster ST, which is going to give some damping whenever, you know, the bike goes against a you know, curb or something. There's a cheap Chinese rear light here. Okay, so no particular modifications on this bike, no particular kind of serious upgrades. The only real upgrades here are the front light obviously, and the suspension seat post, and the rear mudguard, and there's going to be a front mudguard as well at some point. I just haven't found the right one yet. So that is the kids' Haibike. We'll see how many years of service we'll get out of it. I don't know, but it's pretty cool. I mean, I would love to have something like this when I was a kid, but you know, we didn't have any of this kind of tech when I was young. So thanks for checking out this review, and stay tuned for more e-bike reviews, as well as just reviews and ideas on bikes and that sort of thing. Thanks, and take care.